Good morning and Happy New Year. This is David Knox coming to you live on our first Monday Administrator and Manager webinar, Monday, January 9th, 2017. Wow, into another year. Hearing a lot of people say, oh, glad to be done with 2016. Let's start over. Let's get into a good year. So we've got a lot of things planned for you guys in 2017 to make it good for training and help you out. So thank you very much for joining me today. Let's take you through. First of all, let's get the next webinar on the schedule. Monday, February 6, 2017 will be the next one. And so be sure to get that on your schedule. Today we'll talk about the January 2017 videos, a few new features we've added, remind you of our Facebook group page, and I'm happy to have our guest presenter, Carla Cross. So she's online right now. We're going to turn it over to her soon. So let's begin, talk about our January videos. As usual, we always have the video, what's new for the current month. And on that page are the support materials. In fact, let me just go there right now. Just to remind you, I know I have some new members on today. So remember, when you click on the what's new for the current month, over on the right will be the topic list. And probably the most valuable one, I think, is the Knox topics by curriculum for January 2017. And this can be your TV guide. And, you know, even though we're an online portal, I think sometimes it's easier to see things in print. So print that out to see all of our topics. And also right here, if you click on this link, it will take you to our Facebook group page. And here's some things that we posted. And the idea behind the Facebook group page is to cut through the clutter and get through all the emails, spam, and everything else, and go directly to your agents and let them know about the new videos. So we've had a lot of people join, so we're getting some activity on that. So remember that. Let's go back here. Next thing we've done, Knox First Tuesday 106-1, maximize your personal professional brand with Amber Rose Bierke. And she is a kick. In fact, if you've ever seen the movie Fargo, if you want to see basically where that accent came from, listen to Amber Rose. She's about as Minnesotan as you can get. But she is president of Women's Council of Realtors in Minneapolis and does a great job presenting on your brand. We've already had some really good comments on it. So in fact, let's just check the comments, see what people are saying about here. Yeah, we got our first 8 comments. Great information on branding. There was a little discussion on business cards. Great video, great advice. Excellent. Good information. Straightforward stuff. So anyway, it's getting really good reviews, so be sure to get that to your agent, because if you want to start off 2017 on the right foot, I think agents have to clean up their act, the way they dress, their photos, their business cards, how they pronounce realtor, their email signatures. I mean, these are the very first things that customers and clients see. And for those of you on this webinar, broker, owner, managers of webinars, of companies, if you can see some of the stuff your agents do, it's like, oh my gosh, we got to fix this. In our Quick Tip 38, we call them multi-sold cards, because that's what Mike calls them, where he puts 6 properties he's sold on a card. He spent $180 and made $15,000 doing it, so it's a good promotion. So we kind of gave you an overview of this. Oh, we updated Knox First Tuesday number 9 on open house techniques that secure buyers. One of the things that my goal is to go through our older videos and one at a time start picking them off and redoing those that definitely need to be re-recorded. So we're up to KFT 09. I added a little bit more to it, so it's actually a 2-part series. But those of you who've heard me talk about Bob Wolf holding an open house every day for a year, he is featured in this Knox First Tuesday. And down at the bottom, $30. I should have meant 30 million. He did 30 million in 1989 out of open houses. Remember, we send out our email at the beginning of every month that tells people how to find the videos, what's new, how to log in, and you'll notice in the upper right it says forward to your agents. I remind you again, we will not email your agents. We rely upon you to do that. So that way you have the control. And I think within each company you've got to decide, is the manager doing it or is the administrator doing it? But it's really designed for the administrator. Got a December 30th, just got a wonderful email, and I guess I'm showing this partly to brag, but more importantly, I just want to show you that if agents will engage in the videos, they will make money. You know, here's a guy, recent listing presentation. He followed all the videos that we did. He studied the material. And the owner was going to interview 4 different agents. All of them have very good reputations and more experience than I do, said Bruce. And he emailed me saying he got a letter that they're going to list with him. And when I called for permission, he said, by the way, David, since I sent you that email, the owner has sent me a referral for another listing, and she's also going to tell, she told him all the mistakes the other agents made. And I said, Bruce, don't tell me now. What I want you to do is get somebody with a video camera, and I want to shoot a quick tip, and I want you to tell me what the seller said about all the mistakes that were made. So hopefully we'll get a good quick tip video out of that. But I said, well, what are some of the things you did? And he said, well, I got to the area early, like you say. I sat in my car, I relaxed, I prepared, I listened to a couple more listing videos. I went to the front door, knocked exactly on time to the second. I offered to take my shoes off, and within all of that, he got into a good rapport with the seller. So that's what your agents can do. Again, I remind you, the Facebook page show you how to get there. Just this morning, we finished and uploaded 2 new user guides. I had a request from a number of people to separate the user guide from the accountability tutorial. So first thing I did was split them. Second thing I did was update the tutorials. So go over and click on Manager Resources, and you will get to this page and download those 2 guides. Remember to Skype me in. I keep reminding you this. I do this as often, anytime somebody requests, I'll do it, and agents get a kick out of it. They laugh. We have a lot of fun. And for those of you who've not done it, it's pretty simple. Just go to Skype.com, download Skype, open an account with a username. I think it can be done in seconds. And once that's done, all you have to do is give me a call or email me, and we'll pick a time to do a Skype. And we'll just have a 2-way video conference. Before this, Carla was asking me, do I like doing webinars? And my honest answer was, you know, not really. I prefer Skype or live seminars where there's 2-way interaction. Webinars, you just don't know if anybody's actually engaged in listening. But Skype, we can have some fun. So I promise you, it will increase the viewership. The agents go, how long have we had this training? We've had it for a year. Wow, that's really cool. I like this stuff. Let's go watch some more. So remember that. And by the way, I'm trying to think what I can do to achieve the #1 goal, and that is to increase engagement with your agents in the training. There's really no other issue that I face in this training. You know, producing content, we're pretty good at that. We know how to do it. We think it's good. We upload it. We have outlines. We've got that covered. And the challenge is trying to keep agents engaged. And I consider it part of my responsibility, not all. I mean, I can't fly to your offices, grab your agent's fingers and put it on the play button, but I will do pretty much everything up to that. And I think I'm happy to call all your managers. So if you were to email me a list of your managers by name, email, and phone number, because then we can put it into our system, and I will systematically go through. I'll call every single branch manager in our membership and just let them know about the training and see if they have any questions. It would be a daunting task to do it. I don't know how long it will take, but I just want you to know I'll do just about anything to help get engagement. Accountability plan, this is a simple new feature update. Julie Giles, who may even be on this call, I don't have the list in front of me. Well, now I do. Anyway, Julie called and said, you know, anytime the enrollment email goes out, it's always from the branch manager. And I said, yeah, that's how it's designed. She said, we've got some plans where I want to send them out as the administrator, kind of as the overall company. What can you do for us in that? So we just did a simple feature change. When you log in and go to edit the training plan, you'll see down here that you can have the from field be manager name or administrator name. Now, remember, you've got to be very careful typing between the tildes. So that's a new feature. Let's see here. I think I talked about this last time, but in order to get your agents engaged, I have 2 documents. One is the Welcome to the Training by David Knox. It's in a Word doc in Manager Resources, and it just suggests 3 videos for new, rising top producers, and you can put your own logo in, do whatever you want with it, save it as a PDF and send it to your agents. And the other one is on the action plans. Same thing, it's in Word. It's just an introductory document you can give to your agents. So before I introduce Carla, because that's my next thing, I am going to stop. I'm going to take a breath and see if there's anything that any of you, boy, we have a lot of people on today. Thank you for joining me. Any questions that any of you have that I can address before we turn it over? Hey, Julie Giles just said, I'm here. Anyway, Julie, thanks for the suggestion on the feature. We put that in for you. If I could find you in this long list here, I would. There we are. I'm going to unmute Julie Giles. Nope. Hey, Julie, how did that feature work for you? Julie, I can hear you. Well, maybe I can't. All right. Thanks for making it. You are welcome, Julie. Okay, no microphone there. Anybody else, please just, and as I was saying before, maybe just type an X in the questions box, let you know you're there. If there's any feature requests, any questions you guys have, type it in. And by the way, when Carla comes on, one of the challenges all of us have is try to get engagement and involvement on webinars. So please make sure you see that question box. And as Carla is presenting, you know, right as she says something you want to ask a question about, just type it in. We won't answer it right away, but at least we'll have it on the list. Diane types an X. Good. That means you're there, Diane. Look at this. I'm getting a lot. Oh, Julie says her mic's not working. Okay. Lori Reese, I'm here. Good. Like I say, my greatest challenge with webinars, I can't see you guys. I don't know how you're doing. So if you are all ready, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Carla Cross. And Carla is president of Carla Cross Seminars Incorporated, international speaker, trainer, and coach, and specializing in people management. And what sets Carla apart is her unique approach to professional development. She understands and communicates how to gain exceptional performance. And while you are taking a look at that, I am going to make Carla a presenter. And I'm going to click OK. And Carla, I'm going to turn it over to you. And there you are, Carla. Let's check your audio. How are you?
Perfect. I'm great. Thank you, David. I really appreciate your letting me do this, and I've always admired, and you guys take real seriously when David says, I have a little story for you a little bit later about my own experience too, about creating all these programs and then going into an office and seeing them in a locked cabinet, which doesn't do much good.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway, so are you guys ready to get started?
I think they're ready. We've got a good active group.
Yeah, you do. That's awesome. Thank you for joining me. Managers are my favorite group. I do some agent stuff, but I was a manager and an owner and a regional director for a long time, and so I really like to share these things because I think you guys are the unsung heroes so many times. So I've picked 4 strategies to supercharge your recruiting for 2017. So let's take a look. Here's just some more propaganda about me that you can look at when you want to. And by the way, if you look to your right, you'll see 2 handouts. One is the PDF of this presentation. So if you want to use that right now and take notes, you can, or at least grab a piece of paper, if you will, and a pen. I'm actually going to ask you some questions, and I'm going to ask you to put some things in the chat, but also some things for you to do. Because I know that being on these webinars doesn't mean squat. What means a lot is do you take these things out that you can easily and quickly put to work. I was a manager for a long time, and so I know that we've got a million things to do in a day and a million interruptions. So I want to make this real easy for you to get things done and have a better 2017. So here's what we're going to do today. First of all, the 4 strategies, a recruiting plan, what do you need and how to get it done. In a minute, I'm going to ask you about how many managers do you think actually have recruiting plans. And number 2 then, why fogging the mirror will finally do you in. I know when the market's really great, it's really easy to hire a bunch of people, but that doesn't give you an insurance plan for bad times. So we're going to talk about what you need to do in order to create that insurance plan. Number 3, the interview process, the best questions to ask, and they're probably not the ones you're asking, but I've got the best question for you to ask, and I call it the crystal ball question. And finally, number 4, your best magnets for recruiting, they're probably not what you think. So let's go ahead and get started. Grab a pen and let's go. First of all, just a little bit of a definition. What's a recruiting plan? Well, it's a series of processes that form an identifiable system. It's part of your business plan. In other words, it should be something written down that you can use every day to decide what to do to build your office with great agents. Now, doesn't that sound exactly like we tell agents to do with a lead generation plan? And how many of them fail because they don't have the plan that literally tells them what to do each day? So a recruiting plan is the same thing. And then a business plan is the integration of your system. I love that definition. That's Michael Gerber. If you've never read The E-Myth and The E-Myth Revisited, you got to read it, because you're going to read those books and you're going to go, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah. And you can see why it's so hard from going from a great agent to going to a great manager. It's a different set of skills, and I'm so happy you're with me, because these are skills that are relatable to what we did as agents, but we have to transfer them to being managers. So my first question to you, and you can just put it in the chat area. Do you guys all see the chat area over there? My first question is, what percent of managers do you think have a recruiting plan? So just put her in there if you would, and let's just take a look and see what you think. Go ahead and just type it in the chat area. So I don't see anything yet. Dave said, put your area in the chat. Aha, okay. Does everybody see what? Do I need to write a question there, Dave, in order for them to put their stuff in the chat? I don't know. Okay, what percent? Dave says 10%.
Carla, sorry. I had muted myself. They're putting in the questions there instead of the chat, which is fine. So we got 10%, 50%, 25%. Can you see it in the questions? 10.
No, I'm not seeing questions. I took a look at view. It doesn't give me a chance to see questions. I can only see chat.
We're getting tons of response. So let me just kind of go down the list. I wrote in.
Yeah, if you'll tell me that, so that'd be great, because I can't
25,
see questions.
10, 50, 25, 10, 20, 32, 10, 10, 10, 20, 20. Monica said they say they have one. Results sometimes speak differently. So those are their answers.
Yeah. Great. Okay, good. So in other words, I could kind of summarize, probably less than 25%. And yet, what do you guys think? If we all tell our agents to have a business plan, and yet very few do. And if I ask you what percentage have that, you probably answer about the same. And we tell managers always to have a recruiting plan, but very few do. So let me show you real quickly what should be then in your recruiting plan. Now, take your pens, if you will, and at least write these down. I told you I would share with you things that you can go right and put to work. So you don't have to have a great big fancy thing. This is enough to get you started. So just guess right now if you don't know. How many are you going to need? Now, in order to do that, you have to know how many to add, but you also have to know what your normal attrition is. That is, when you walk in tomorrow, how many licenses might be on your desk. So how many do you need? And then you can separate that out into what percentage of new and what percentage experience. So everybody got that at least jotted down? And then how soon do you need them? So you may have right now a bigger need than you have in July. So what you want to do then is put this through the year, and for every month put in how many recruits you need. Not only attrition, but those that you are going to, as a friend of mine used to say, and I know David knows him, Ken Rahans, he used to say, how many are you going to put the Happy Trails record on for? So don't put yourself in the situation where you have to keep people in order to keep your numbers. Go recruit your heart out so you're in control of the people that you have. And then where are you going to find them? If they're new, are you going to go to pre-licensed schools? Are you going to teach? If they're seasoned, which companies are most vulnerable? So where are you going to find those people that you're starting to think more about in terms of real people, not just numbers? And then what are you going to do each day and how much? Now, that's like an agent's lead generation plan. So how many calls are you going to make each day? And then how many interviews are you going to do? And then do you have somebody to assist you? Maybe you have a lead generating person that's going to do that. How are you going to market to them and keep in touch? Now, that's the marketing plan for recruits that goes into your recruiting plan. So you'll need a marketing plan for each target market for your recruit. So in other words, if you're going to go after new, what's your marketing plan for that? How are you going to follow up? And then finally, how are you going to track your contacts and measure your results? What's interesting is the very few managers that use contact management in order to keep track of all of this. So I want you to that's the first thing I want you to do, is if you're not using some contact management program, go out and snag one, even if you start with Outlook. Anything is better than nothing. I recruited a whole lot, both as a manager and as a regional director, and I can tell you there is no way I can remember who I talked to or when I talked to or what I was supposed to do with them unless I documented it this way. So that's what you need in your recruiting plan. I hope that as I was going through this, you were writing these things down. Now, when you go away from there, I want you to flesh it out. Now you've got your recruiting plan, which makes a process and a system that you can put in your daily planner and that also integrates with that business plan. Remember, according to Gerber, a business plan is a series of systems. I know that some of you are thinking of retiring. If you want to retire and you want me to buy your company, you want to be able to sell me your systems. So that's what I want you to think about. Now, let's go to number 2, strategy number 2. Get picky. I know this is hard. I know it because as a regional director, I was one of those people that asked people, how many people did you hire last month and how many did you lose? And so the basic idea that the managers got was that they were just a hire. And those are the people that had the great big turnover rate. So it was like they were a new manager 20 times rather than having been a manager that's seasoned, that knows how to hire the right people and keep the right people. I read an article quite a while ago that Toyota only hires people about 1 out of 10 to 1 out of 20. And if you read articles on other businesses, they don't just hire anybody. So I want you to take a look at your ratios. This is another thing. Write this down if you would. Take a look at those ratios and see how many interviews you're doing to how many hires. You don't get bragging rights for hiring everybody you talk to. I've talked to lots of managers that go, yeah, hire everybody you talk to. That's not good. Just ask your agents. In fact, I had one agent tell me once, well, we don't even get to know their names until they're here for 3 months because we don't know if they're going to stick. Oh, boy. And I know David was talking about clients. What do your clients think about these yahoos? So you've got a company name to protect, and you want to have the right agents. And the next thing tells you why you get picky, because you can't train or coach your way out of a bad hire. A few years ago, a friend of mine and I were speakers at the National Convention of Realtors, and we're speaking to probably 400 or 500 trainers. And one trainer jumped up and said, well, I don't know why, but what's wrong with my training program because I can't get them to do anything. And we said, nothing's wrong with your training program. Whoever's hiring is not hiring right. So I know David's programs are excellent, but people who don't want to go to work are not going to use those programs because, quite frankly, they don't care. They're just looking for some easy snag, especially when the market's really good. So now we're going to go into interviewing. And I want you to think about your knockout factors, because in a minute I'm going to show you that magic crystal ball question. Hope you've got a pen, because I want you to write your knockout questions. They may be different than mine, but here are some of the ones I've always used. And it's partly because I would get these comments from these guys calling me up. Yeah, I just want to work kind of a little bit in real estate. I want to kind of ease my way in. I I got a job at Microsoft, and I might be there for 20 years, but I might want to sell real estate sometime. Would you hire them? Or they call up and say, I want to hang my license. Well, that's real respectful of me, isn't it, in our company? Unwilling to meet standards. What do I mean by that? I mean, are they willing to meet your minimum expectations? Not your goals, but your minimum expectations. Like, do you expect them to go to training and do the work? Do you expect them to do a certain number of lead-generating activities? Wants to know about commissions first. This is always a knockout factor for me. I found out if they came in and first said, how much are you going to pay me? What are you going to give me? That was a problem. Now, I want you, I don't know if you've got screening phone questions or not, but I want you to have them. So, and you can actually have your assistant screen these people, but I want you to create some phone questions. So just for a minute, somewhere, write down your knockout factors. And David, I'm going to ask them too to write a couple of their knockout factors, and if you'll read them to us, that I don't have up there. What are some other knockout factors that if you found out in your pre-phone interview, remember you ask agents to do this, right, for listing or buying? You have them do a phone interview as knockout? Well, you need to do it too, so you don't waste your time and their time interviewing the wrong people, so it's not a match. So over there in the question area, would you write down any other knockout factors you use? Again, there are no right or wrong ones. These are just things that you know that these people wouldn't fit with your team, and so you don't want to set up an interview.
I'll just take a look and see what comes up.
Yeah,
I suppose, I guess if they just got out of prison, that might be a knockout factor.
Oh, yeah.
No,
not in some areas.
I'm just joking, just kidding around.
Oh, really? Okay.
You can't make or commit to the training. Yeah, if right away they go, yeah, I want to come and work, but I can't make the training or the meetings. Yeah, that'd be a clue. Lives too far away. Not willing to role play fraud, fraud conviction. Yep. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Julie and Tom, for posting. Monica, how much time do you plan to commit to real estate activities? That'd certainly be a good knockout question. Here's another one. Needs guaranteed income. I think that's good, both for a knockout factor and also, I guess, from a compassionate side, if somebody really needs that. We got to be careful. Another question from Bill Morshek. Do you have resources, saving, spouse, working, that would enable you to stay focused on real estate for 6 months to a year? That's a good one. Is your significant other on board? Thanks, Richard. Angie says, must have basic technology skills to utilize our systems. Can't pay initial fees, licensing, board dues. So there's some good answers.
Actually, good. Yeah, and I hope you guys are jotting those down. Yeah, those are excellent answers. Now, some of those are appropriate for a screening, pre-screening phone questions, and some of them you'll want to save for your interview, because some things in the pre-interview phone questions you're not ready to ask, or you may not get good answers because you haven't warmed them up. But I want you to create a phone interview that either you do or your assistant does, and especially if when you're hiring new people. You need to save your time, and you need to match up with who you want. Now, we're going to talk about matching up.
Hey, Carla, we just had, very quickly, one more said, one other question was, can you work nights or weekends?
Oh, excellent.
Oh, and Jewel said, can you make suggestions, comments viewable to all? As I was doing this, I thought, how do I do that? The answer is, I don't know.
Yeah, usually in the questions, it has a question area, and then everybody can see it. But as I said, for some strange reason, I can't see.
I think we're using the questions instead of the chat. That could be it. So.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, we'll just have you guys write fast. This is good. Okay. But what's more important than also copying what somebody else says is to take a little think time. And I know it's really tough. I know. I did this a long time. I know it's hard to get think time. So you got to go in early or stay late, or do it on weekends. But it's real important to think through this stuff so you're in control of the atmosphere of your team. Now, let's look at then envisioning. We talked about the knockout factors. Now let's talk about what we want. So grab your pen again. Your ideal agent, what skills would they have? And somebody already pointed out a great one about must have basic computer skills. What talents do you want them to have? How well can they speak, for instance? What qualities do you want? And then how well do you want them to meet the consumer needs? And David was talking about that with that letter from the guy from Michael Sanders' company who was very cognizant of meeting and exceeding consumer needs, which I don't think in the real estate industry think too much about. We're thinking internally how to hire more people to sell more real estate. But we also want to meet and exceed the consumer needs because ultimately they're going to hire us or not. Now, do your interview questions then reflect what you're looking for? So before we go to the next screen, would you jot down what your favorite or one or two of your favorite interview questions? So just jot them down anywhere. We're not gonna see them. I just want to help you figure out, are they getting you what you really want, or are they somewhat misleading but fascinating? So jot down your favorite interview questions, or question at least. Now, when you get back to your office, I'm going to ask you to take your whole list of interview questions and evaluate them. Everybody got
Carla,
at least one interview question? Yeah.
I've got one question. You can pick the time to answer it, but Doug asks, how do you recommend recruit new agents when the only thing we have is a mailing address? If you want to just jot that down and work it in before we end.
Sure. Yeah, let's go ahead and save that to the end.
Yeah, no. I just want you to know you save it and continue on your deal.
Yeah, okay. All right, great. I got some ideas for you. Okay, good. Everybody got a question? Okay, now I want you to evaluate that question or questions this way. Is that question leading? That is, does this question give the interviewee, or let's call, write this down if you would, candidate? I learned that.
David, did we lose audio? Can you hear me?
You might do something unethical, would you? Well, duh. But you know what? Now, that's an extreme example, but we ask those kinds of questions, and so we telegraph to the people what they ought to answer. And it doesn't work, does it? The next one, future focused. It's as simple as, how much money do you want to make in real estate? Well, they're going to look at you and just tell you whatever they think you want to hear. And they've also talked to lots of people, and they say things like, well, I want to make $100,000 my first year. And you're like, yeah, right. So that's a problem too. Now, it's okay to ask these, but you're not getting very truthful answers, which you need in order to make a good decision. Require yes or no answers. Now, there's nothing wrong with closed-ended questions, except if you ask too many of them. You want to get them talking, and you want to listen. In a minute, I'm going to show you the question that guarantees, almost guarantees, that they will talk, you will listen, and you will find out what they're all about. And finally, is the question unrelated to what you're looking for, but it's a fascinating question that gets fascinating answers. So I want you to evaluate your questions, and now I'm going to show you how to reframe those questions or ask different ones that really are crystal ball questions. So here's how you do it. I call this question the behavioral predictor question. And I learned these questions when I was teaching CRB, that Certified Real Estate Broker, courses over a period of 12 years. When I learned this, boy, it's like the lights went on in my head, and I said, oh my gosh, this is a crystal ball question because of this principle. How you behaved in the past predicts how you will behave in the future. Some of you know I'm in the Seattle area, and so I watched the Seahawks win yesterday, and I'm fascinated by how Pete Carroll coaches. I bet you guys are too. And one of the articles in the paper lately was talking about Thomas Rawls, who is a running back that took Marshawn Lynch's place when Marshawn retired, which were big shoes to fill. And Thomas Rawls got injured a couple of times in the last year, so hasn't played too much. But yesterday when he played, he did really, really well. And here's the reason I'm telling you this. The people said, the article said, Pete Carroll and his scouts said, you know, we saw Thomas Rawls do everything we wanted in a player when he was at, I think it was Michigan State, one of the Michigan schools. We saw all the qualities and skills that we wanted in a player. What we didn't know is, would they work the same way in the pros? But they hire based on the principle how you behaved in the past predicts how you would behave in the future. So you're hiring for great football players. Would you hire them because they tell you they want to be a great football player? Or would you look at their past record, the hard facts, and hire because they have proven they can play? Well, of course, you would hire because they have proven they could play. But so many times we don't hire because they have proven to have the skills and qualities we want because we don't know how to ask this question. Here's the question. Now, there's a handout. If you look over to your right, see where it says Behavioral Predictors handout? What I've done for you is to go through the whole process that I'm going to sketch for you right now, and I've given you examples. So here's the process. Pick a talent or value you want in an agent, and then ask a past-based question. Now, when you go through your questions, I want you to evaluate your questions to be sure they're past-based. I want you to think of Thomas Rawls playing football in college. Pretend you're interviewing him and you want to know about what he did on the field, or you're looking at his record. Always past-based. You can start most of them with, was there a time in your past when? Now, then I want you to shut them out. And this is real important. Stay on the question. Don't get a different question. One of the mistakes we make is in interviewing, play 20 questions, and all we do is find the facile answers. I want you to go real deep. I want you to probe. You know, well, what happened then? Well, tell me more. I want you to probe until they're sure they have sufficient amounts of what you're looking for. So I want you to evaluate their sufficiency. I was teaching a management series for Windermere Real Estate a few years ago, and had 10, 12 managers, and their assignment was to go out and interview 5 people that week and ask behavioral predictor questions. And one of the people came back and said, oh my gosh, they're magical. I had to interview for a new office manager, and I used this, and I interviewed probably 20 people. She said, I am killer. So I want you to interview until you are killer at it. I want to ask you now, and Dave, you'll have to tell me, but over on the right, if you guys will put in, here's the question. It's a little different past-based question, but it is in the past. When did you get your first job? Just put how old you were when you got your first job, any job. I mean, I was in 8th grade when I started playing piano for ballet classes, so I was like 13. So put down there, Dave, what are they putting for when, how old were you when you got your first job? Any job. 12. You beat me.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, I was mowing lawns. By the way, I just want to endorse those questions you're answering. Behavioral questions back in the past. Tell me what you actually did. It is absolutely the most powerful way to find out what's really going on here. So the numbers are like 14, 14, 16, 12 babysitting, 12, 16. Okay, so there's some of the answers we have right now. Okay,
great. Yeah. Now, what am I looking for when I ask that question? Well, one of the things that I want in a real estate agent is they've got to have a self-starter. I can't call them every morning and get them out of bed. I can't say, I don't want to talk them into 10 times using David's programs. I don't have time to do that. So I want somebody that goes, yeah, I'll go do it, and do it. So I want a self-starter. So if I were probing and I ask you guys that question, and you said I started when I was 12, I'd say, tell me about that. And you'd say, well, I started mowing lawns when I was 12 because I wanted to get a new radio. And we were going on a trip, and my dad didn't have a radio in his car, and I wanted to listen to the World Series. So I went out and mowed lawns and got enough money, and he said, I bought a yellow radio. Now, here's what's interesting, and this is a real interview I did. Here's what's interesting, is when that guy was sitting in front of me, and this will happen every time, when you ask a past-based question, your brain goes into the past, and you start actually looking different, sounding different, and acting different. In other words, more like your real self. When I ask you that question, I'll bet your brain went right into the past, didn't it? You couldn't help yourself. I've only had one instance. Huh?
That's a good example. That's a good example.
Yeah. I've only had one time when I asked them a past-based question, and she said, oh, do you mean if I ever would? She was trying to reframe it as a future question. Here's what I found out real quick. She wasn't a good candidate. I was screening for managers. She was not a good candidate because she didn't want to ask any of the past-based because she did not have that performance, anything I was asking in the past. Now, here's the deal. It isn't, you don't have to be concerned that they did it in real estate. You have to be concerned that they did it in life. Why? Because they're going to pretty much act the same way. Will you get surprised once in a great while? Yes. Now, I wish we had time and we were like in person. I could bring somebody up and we could role play this and you could guess what I was looking for. We don't have time, so you're going to have to go and take this sheet and go practice until you're killer. But thanks for saying that, David. If we were all to use these behavioral predictor questions, we would actually have a much better team and we know what they're about. Plus, you guys, ask them later if you were a different interviewer and they're going to go, yeah, nobody ever asked me that stuff. Because they don't. They ask these future-based questions instead. Now we're going to switch to number 4. Develop new magnets. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we talked about screening them, but what's attractive about you? And do you have those magnets now? Now, one of the things that you have is the PDF of this whole thing because I'm not going to go through all this. But here's a list of what Gen X and Gen Y want. And one of them that we're going to look at just for a minute is education/training, number 3. But these are all here for you. And I want you to go and take this list and say, am I flexible enough, for instance, to create an inclusive, participative environment? In other words, do I have an advisory group, which I started doing, oh gosh, when I first became a manager, but everybody thought I was nuts to actually have people helping me as a leadership team. But it came out I wasn't so darn nuts at all because I knew that a lot of brains working on the same thing were a lot stronger than Carla's brain inside an office alone. But opening it up and being inclusive is very threatening to lots of people. So I want you to take a look at what Gen X and Gen Y want and ask, am I actually meeting these needs? And if not, am I having a tough time getting kind of new blood into my real estate office? I once was working with a guy that said he owned 5 offices, very well known. If I told you who he was, I won't. But he said, Carla, he says, my best office, my most profitable office, I got a problem. He says, because they're getting so old, they're dying, and nobody else will come there because they're so tough on these new people. So you got to be sure that you have an environment that's inclusive so that new people or younger people want to join. And I'll show you why in a minute. Here's a study, and I just looked this up. I'm an author with Dearborn Publishing. In fact, up and running in 30 days, is going into its 5th printing. I can't believe it. Anyway, I get the Dearborn newsletters, and this is a study by Teresa Barnaby and Bruce Moyer, who are both educators and work with RET. And this is one of the things in the article that they said. They said, stop lecturing. Now, I teach instructor development, and I try to get people to do all these what's called alternative delivery methods. But a lot of people want complete control. They just want to lecture. So go interactive, stop all that lecturing, because, again, especially the younger people don't care. Group work, use task force and case study. That is, assign them things to do and have them work together. Dyads, idea exchange, and role play. And somebody mentioned that earlier. Isn't it scary if we don't do role play? And I don't mean talk about what you might do. I mean role play. Do it as though you are them. If we don't do that, and we don't help people get blazingly good, and we send them out to role play on the client, that's a scary thought, isn't it? Individual activities or action plans. The best training is all interval training. You learn something, you come out and go out and do it, and you come back and say how it worked, and then you get better. And finally, student-led learning. That is, go out and do research or work on things together and come back and report. Now, real quickly, I'm not going to ask you, but I want you to go through and I want you to think about how you train and what your training is right now. What are you relying on? Are you boring them to tears with a lecture or mamby-pamby discussion? Or are you actually throwing the ball and the accountability to them and actually using training skills to set up task force, case study, role play, action plans, and research report? Now, here's why, too. I thought this was really interesting. These authors said, and they're in the Southwest, the average age of a pre-licensed student in the Southwest is now 26, down from the mid-30s 5 years ago. Now, I don't know what it is in your area, but isn't that stunning? So that means, and I just touched on training, but that means there are lots of things that we need to do in order to create new magnets. Now, here's the biggest magnet. It's you. You guys know who this is over here? Well, the kid on the right, 6-year-old Carla Garrison then, and the kid on the left, my sister, Laura, and that's our first recital. And I'm playing the piano. Now, what does this mean? It means to use the talents and skills you're given and translate those to real estate and then relate those to the people that you're interviewing. So real quickly, I just want you to write down one talent or a skill that you have. Now I want you to write down how that means you can help agents. It might be that you're a member of National Speakers Association or Toastmasters. You can help agents do better presentations, but you have to be able to relate that to them, and you relate to what that candidate wants. Now, there's a whole much more to that, and I'm just going to touch on it, but I wanted to let you know that you, not the company, the weakest managers use the company magnets. That doesn't work very well, but especially if you're in a multi-office company. The less weak managers use the office magnets, and that's good. But you, especially when you're rebuilding, you are the big magnet. This isn't an ego thing. It's just like, and you know this, at NAR stats say that the vast majority of sellers choose the agent, not the company, as the first reason they choose. Just like that guy at Michael Sanders. He had to do a great job in presentation, or else his company couldn't overcome it. So let's take a look then at how to put these ideas to work. Here's what we did today. First, we talked about recruiting plans. So I want you to write that recruiting plan, and I gave you what goes in it. Don't fall for fog the mirror. Make a goal for ratios of interviews to hires. If you don't know what your ratios are, I want you to, when you get out of here, do your ratios and set a personal goal for yourself. Is it 1 to 3? Is it 1 to 5? 1 to 10? Scour your interview questions for those that lead and project the future. We talked about that. You wrote some of them down. I want you to go back and really evaluate. Are they fascinating questions that get fascinating answers, but don't really give you what they're about? Start relying much more on behavioral predictor questions, those past-based crystal ball questions, until you're killer. Now, it takes a lot of practice. Why? Because you're going to want to revert back to future-based questions or your favorite questions. You can ask those, but I don't want you to rely on them. And I promise you, if you work the past-based, the behavioral predictor, you're not going to have to work so darn hard. You just have to know how to probe and listen and stay on that question. You ask 3 or 4 of these really good ones, that's all the questions you have to ask. You will find out everything you want to know about that person and whether they meet your standards and your criteria. Finally, create the magnets to create your best future hires and update your training methods and polish you as a magnet. The key to hiring the best agents. You want your agents to understand what value you provide, and I want you to look inside yourself for specific values that you can provide. So that's what we did today. There's your action plan. Thank you so much. And David, thank you so much for being with us. And I know I've got one question to answer. And Dave, do you have any comments? I'll answer that new agent question.
Oh, Carla, first of all, thank you so much for this. It was a great presentation. One of the things that came to mind to me is that oftentimes a manager will come in and say, how many agents did you have last time? 20. How many this time? 20. Well, that wasn't very good. But on the other hand, that manager may have hired 2 and fired 2, and that was 2 really good events, but when added together, it looks like they did nothing. So I think the leaders in our companies have to reward those as 2 separate behaviors. So I would say that I think the behavioral questions are absolutely powerful. I would encourage everyone to get involved in those. And Carla, if they want more information from you, it looks like they go to carlacross.com. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Everything's there. Yeah. I'll quickly answer that new agent question. Yes, it's very hard to get information on prospective agents in most states. What you need to do is a couple of things. Number one, I want you to consider teaching or training in pre-licensed schools, but if not that, what I did, and I organized this with some of my agents, we actually went into pre-licensed schools just to talk about what real estate was like, behavioral profiles, those kinds of things that would be helpful to people thinking about going into the business. We found that pre-licensed schools would generally let us in to do that. We also always bought food, of course. And we found that that was a great way to get in touch with these people. Another thing is when you do hire a new agent, ask them, who did you go to pre-licensed school with that you would recommend? And that way you can usually track that person back. The largest pre-licensed school here does not let anybody in to actually even talk to people, but of course the community colleges do. But the other schools do let people in. So the way to track people is to hire them and then say, who would you recommend? So I hope that helps. Those are a couple ideas that will work for you.
Oh, thank you, Carla. The other thing, Doug, I would say is send them a handwritten note and you've got their address, because I promise you there's no other person on the planet Earth that will do that. I want to be respectful of all of our members' time. We're running a little bit long today, but thank you guys all for attending. Carla, thank you for being on this. I think what we're going to do is stop the recording, and then what I would like to do is I'll just stay on, and I guess both of us could stay on to see if there's any other questions people have. So thank you all for being members of Real Estate Training by DavidKnox.com. Keep your comments coming on the videos, and I look forward to seeing you at our February 1st Monday. Thank you.